I want to get back to this whole Draymond's career thing. I mean, could you imagine, Andrew, having a podcast like that while you're playing and while you're playing these meaningful games? I mean, maybe that's just something that's normal now. I find it to be just such an odd feature, and it's just kind of like he's just always on the edge. He was always on the edge when he was in his prime, and now it's almost like on the edge, not just with opponents, not just with refs, but just out there. But also, I think underrated. Like it just seems like he's still good, and people don't want to admit it because of how much he's annoyed everybody by just being too much in all these different capacities. This isn't really even a question, Andrew. It's just a prompt. Now I'm giving my takes, but yeah.
No, it is. It is. I think so. I think I know people that just despise Draymond, but I'm like, tell them like he's a winner. You can't look at his solely on his stats at the end of the night. Like he does a lot of things that go unnoticed, and he's also hated because of the way he goes about his business. Some people love him, some people hate him, and that's just so. Then they're blinded by that. He's always going after the refs. He's always complaining. He's outspoken. He's got a podcast. The uniqueness of his podcast, he's one of the few guys that gets on after games and evaluates the game, which I think is, it's unique. It's no one's doing that. It's something different. So in the world of podcasting, you got to find something that's different, and that's where he's obviously. He's got that TNT role as soon as he retires. Let's be honest, like that Thursday night TNT, he's going to be one of the panelists. So I'll bet my house on it. I think that's lined up for him. There's no doubt in my mind. And I think doing this kind of stuff, he's trying to set his line for post career and showing that he can do different things off the floor. And am I for it? Am I against it? I mean, as far as when you're in a playoff series talking about schemes and tactics, probably if I was a coach, I'd be like, pump the brakes on that a little bit, but that's what people are tuning in for. It's real, it's raw, it's authentic, it's him. So if you like Draymond and you want real, raw, authentic, you're getting it, but it does put a little bit of extra pressure on you. But God bless him. Good luck to him. Like I think he's if you're enjoying doing it, you don't care what people think, keep going with it. But most players now have podcasts anyway, and most of them are the same kind of format set up, pretty mundane and boring stuff for the most part, unless you're Gilbert Arenas and you just start saying crazy stuff all the time and just trying to get, it seems like every other week he says something crazy that's in the media, which I think is half strategic. But I think Draymond's is a bit more kind of natural, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I was about to say, could you even imagine Carlisle with this sort of thing? But I guess he has player podcasters now, and it's just something the coaches have to accept because of the player power. I just think it's one of these things that it happened pretty quickly. And I guess Carlisle and everybody else just has to be rolling with it.
Yeah, I mean, player empowerment, players have the power, coaches have got very little power in this. And then what are you going to do? Tell them not to do it. And then there's going to be a big stink and players association stuff. It just gets out. I think as long as there's not a line crossed with giving up, like Bogue said, like giving up rotational information or information about what you're doing in-house. But if you're just speaking your mind about the game, and I think it's okay. That's what players are doing now. I mean, like we talk about all the time. A million players got podcasts. I think most of them are bad. I think his is like him or love him. I think that, I think he speaks his mind. He's not right all the time. He lies a little bit. I think he has a little imagination on some of the things that he says, but it's authentic. And I don't think he's just trying to do stuff for clicks. I think like he'll just speak his mind. He might be pissed about something and then he'll do it. He's fine. And then, look, he's not going to be loved by everybody. He's sort of like the Dennis Rodman of our time. Like he's not as crazy as Rodman. His game fits certain teams like Rodman. Like if you took Rodman off the Bulls and you put him on another team, he wouldn't be as effective. He wouldn't have the value that he's got. He has huge value with them because he fucks the game up every time he comes in. He's gonna do something controversial. He's gonna talk shit to the ref. Gonna talk shit to the fans. He's gonna get everybody riled up. Rodman did the same thing, except I think he's got a little more common sense. He's a lot more extroverted than Rodman is, and he's not as crazy. But he fucks the game up. Same thing with Brooks. Like Brooks in Houston, people hate Brooks, but what Brooks does is he sort of like fucks the game up, and he's got balls, and he'll take players out of their mental game because he'll fuck with them. And that's what I think that he does. The podcast stuff is what it is. Like I said, as long as he doesn't cross the line, I don't think any coach is going to really have that much of a problem with it. So, I mean, they will, but they won't. They're not going to say it.
My whole thing is, Ethan, people that were criticizing him when he was doing it on the road, I think what was it, the Boston series and out throughout the playoffs. I'm like, I'd much rather him sitting in his room doing an hour podcast and being out on the drink in a strip club till 5 a.m. Right? Like, it's like, he's not harming the world. Like, okay. Like, you might not agree with his opinions. And because he had all these idiot fans that are like, oh, how's he preparing for the game doing a 1 hour podcast? He's sitting in a fucking 5-star hotel with a producer, most likely, that pushes a button to record something with headphones on for an hour. It's okay. It's not taxing his body. Relax. I'd much rather him doing that than being out on the town. So I always laugh when some of these people are like, people think that NBA players and pro athletes, like, if there's a game Thursday and today's Monday, we should be locked in a padded room till that game. It's like, no, like, I saw him out for dinner till 9 o'clock. He had a beer. Ooh, like that kind of shit. It's like, man, like, it's just funny, the dynamic and the rhetoric you get from people.
Dude, during the finals in 10, we were in Boston with Kobe. We were out at the bar at the Ritz or the Four Seasons. I forgot where we were, but we were out till like 3 a.m. just talking. And like they don't go to bed at 10 o'clock, and they're just not like that. You can't
go to bed post game, man. Like post game, a game that goes to overtime, like back and forth. There's a fight. The crowd's in it. You hit some big shots, and you get out of the arena by midnight. You're not going to bed till 3-4 in the morning. Like, and everyone has different habits. I've seen guys, pros too, guys that party all night. They get back to the hotel. They sleep for 2 or 3 hours. They get on the bus to shoot around. They come back. They sleep another 4 hours in the afternoon. They drop 40. And then you got other guys that need 10 hours a night. Everyone's different. And it's like, until it affects your performance, it's fine. Do what you got to do. Like, if I was a head coach, it's like, hey, if you guys want to party, I've got no problem with it. If it affects your performance in practice or the court, we're going to address it. If it doesn't, you give me everything you got. You do whatever you do. Some guys play video games for 12 hours. Some guys go to dinner. Everyone's different. And as long as it's not affecting you on the court, where it gets messy is, your Vin Bakers and these kind of stories that you hear where it then comes in, you being late for practice, smelling of alcohol or whatever it is, or you're clearly tired, then it becomes an issue. But rarely, every guy's different. Every guy's super different.
Yeah, I remember in your series against the Pelicans back in the day, I was hearing people were whispering that, Draymond was at Harrah's till 4 a.m., just like going crazy. And I go, okay, I'll watch for this, put all your money on the Pelicans. And then he's just kicking the shit out of Anthony Davis in the fourth quarter.
Was that the player who was talking to you? Was that Javante Porter, or who was it?
Javante Porter was probably 10 years old back then.
Isn't it Jonte?
Javante.
There are a lot of Porters.
Messing up names.
Call him Javante.
I'm more of a moron than a racist.